Why your bank wants you confused and makes money from it. You're sitting at your computer trying to figure out why your checking account balance doesn't match what you thought it was. There's your available balance, your current balance, and your pending transactions. And somehow, all three numbers are different. You've got transactions that posted 3 days ago still showing as pending. You've got a deposit that's been in limbo for 4 business days, even though it was a direct deposit. And there's a mysterious hold on $200 that you can't quite figure out. You try to read the explanation on the bank's website, but it's written in language that seems deliberately designed to confuse you. After 20 minutes of frustration, you just give up and hope you don't accidentally overdraft. My name's Minted Finance, and I spend way too much time thinking about how banks make money by keeping you confused about your own money. If you're someone who's ever looked at your bank statement and felt like you needed a PhD in finance just to understand what's happening with your own account, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, because what I'm about to show you is going to make you realize that your confusion isn't an accident, it's the business model. So let's talk about bank confusion. Except here's the thing. It's not confusion in the traditional sense. You're not confused because banking is inherently complicated. You're confused because banks have deliberately made it complicated. They've created systems, terminology, and policies that are specifically designed to be just opaque enough that you can't quite figure out what's happening, but not so obviously fraudulent that regulators step in. Now look, before you think I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, let me be clear about what I mean. I'm not saying there's some conspiracy where bankers sit in a dark room plotting how to confuse you. What I'm saying is that banks have figured out, through decades of experience and testing, that customer confusion is incredibly profitable. When you don't fully understand how your account works, you make mistakes, and every mistake you make is revenue for them. Here's what most people don't realize. Banks spend millions of dollars on user experience research and testing. They know exactly how to make things clear and simple. Every major tech company has proven that complex financial transactions can be displayed in ways that normal people understand. But your bank doesn't do that. And it's not because they can't, it's because clarity would cost them money. Let me show you the math, because once you see how much money banks make from your confusion, you're going to be furious. According to data from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Americans paid about $30 billion in overdraft and NSF fees in a recent year. $30 billion! That's more than the entire movie industry makes at the box office annually. And here's the thing. The vast majority of those fees aren't from people who are carelessly spending money they don't have. They're from people who got confused about their balance. Think about how overdraft fees work. You check your balance on Monday morning. It says you have $300 available. Great. You buy groceries for $80. You get gas for $40. You pay for a subscription that you forgot about for $15. You're at $225 spent, so you should have $75 left, right? Wrong, because that available balance didn't include the rent check that was still processing, the gym membership that hadn't posted yet, and the restaurant charge from the weekend that was still pending. So when your 3 transactions process, your account is actually overdrawn, and you get hit with 3 overdraft fees at $105 each. That's $105 in fees on $225 of purchases. Your confusion about what available balance actually meant just cost you almost half of what you spent. And this isn't rare. Studies show that about 9% of customers pay about 75% of all overdraft fees. And these are typically people with less than $1,000 in their account who are trying to manage their money carefully but keep getting tripped up by confusing balance reporting. But here's where it gets interesting. Banks could fix this tomorrow. They could show you one clear number that represents exactly how much you can safely spend right now, accounting for everything. Some online banks and fintech apps already do this, but traditional banks don't, because that clarity would eliminate billions in fee revenue. Your confusion is literally their profit center. Now, you might be thinking, but Minted Finance, I just need to be more careful about tracking my spending. Sure, you could do that. But here's what most people don't realize. The system is designed to make that nearly impossible. Let me explain how transaction posting order works, because this is where things get really shady. When multiple transactions hit your account on the same day, the bank gets to decide what order to process them in. And many banks, for years, deliberately processed transactions from largest to smallest, regardless of when they actually occurred. Why would they do that? Because it maximizes overdraft fees. Let's say you have $100 in your account and 3 transactions come through. $5 for coffee, $10 for lunch, and $95 for groceries. If they process them in the order they occurred, coffee first, then lunch, then groceries, you'd overdraft once on the grocery purchase, one $35 fee. But if they process them largest to smallest, the $95 grocery charge goes first, then the $10 lunch triggers a fee, then the $5 coffee triggers another fee. That's 3 overdraft fees at $105 total, instead of 1. This was so obviously predatory that there were lawsuits, and some banks changed their policies. But here's the thing, they just replaced one confusing system with another. Now you've got holds, pending transactions, memo posts, and a dozen other terms that all mean slightly different things, none of which are clearly explained, all of which create opportunities for you to miscalculate and trigger fees. Let me give you another example of deliberate confusion: credit card interest calculations. Have you ever actually tried to figure out how your credit card interest is calculated? Most people haven't, because it's deliberately incomprehensible. You've got your APR, but that's not what you actually pay. You've got daily periodic rates, average daily balances, billing cycles that don't align with months, grace periods that disappear if you carry a balance, and different rates for purchases versus cash advances versus balance transfers. A study by the Federal Reserve found that about half of credit card holders don't understand how their interest is calculated, and credit card companies know this. They know that if you understood that carrying a $1,000 balance at 18% APR is actually costing you about $15 a month or $180 a year, you'd be more motivated to pay it off. But when the statement just says minimum payment $25, that number feels manageable. Your confusion about the real cost keeps you in debt longer. Here's the psychology part that nobody talks about. Banks use something called strategic opacity. It's a term from behavioral economics that describes how companies deliberately make information hard to find or hard to understand in order to exploit customer confusion. It's not lying, it's not hiding information, it's presenting information in ways that are technically accurate but practically useless. Think about your bank statement. Everything is disclosed, every fee is listed, every transaction is recorded. But try finding a simple answer to how much did I pay in fees this year? You can't just look at one place. You have to go through 12 months of statements, identify all the different fee types, add them up manually. Banks could provide an annual summary that says you paid $340 in fees this year. Some consumer-friendly banks do, but most don't, because they don't want you to see that number and get angry. Or think about savings account interest. Your statement tells you you earned 0.42 cents in interest this month. Sounds like free money, right? But it doesn't tell you that if you had that same money in a high-yield savings account, you would have earned $14. They're not lying about the 0.42 cents, they're just not contextualizing it in a way that would make you realize you're getting ripped off. Here's where it gets really interesting though. Banks have done extensive research on financial literacy, and they know exactly what confuses people. They know that people struggle with percentages, but understand dollar amounts. They know that people can't intuitively grasp compound interest, but can understand simple growth. They know that multiple small fees feel less painful than one large fee, even if the total is the same. And they use all of this knowledge to design systems that maximize confusion and minimize customer awareness of how much money they're losing. Now look, let me give you some concrete examples of how this plays out in practice. Minimum payments on credit cards. The law requires credit card companies to show you how long it will take you to pay off your balance if you only make minimum payments. But they bury that information in tiny print at the bottom of your statement, and they phrase it in the least alarming way possible. If you make minimum payments of $25, your balance will be paid off in 4 years. What they don't say is, you'll pay $860 in interest on a $1,000 purchase, meaning that thing you bought actually cost you almost twice what you thought. Or think about how banks advertise savings accounts. They'll promote an account with 0.50% APY in big bold letters. Sounds pretty good until you realize that's half of 1% annually. If you keep $1,000 in that account,